In the brutal crucible of World War II, few sounds struck as much fear into the hearts of Allied soldiers as the distinctive, tearing linen sound of the Maschinengewehr 42, or MG42, nicknamed Hitler's buzzsaw or the bone saw by those who faced its terrifying might. This German general-purpose machine gun was a marvel of destructive efficiency. With a blistering rate of fire, up to 1,500 rounds per minute, a stream of bullets so fast it sounded like fabric ripping, it could pin down entire platoons, shred fortifications, and halt advances with a terrifying finality. For the young German soldiers who were assigned to wield this beast, there was an initial sense of pride, even invincibility. They were the ones who held the line, who delivered the crushing, suppressive fire, the linchpins of their infantry squad. But beneath this veneer of power lay a terrifying truth, a grim bargain that few fully understood until it was too late. To be an MG42 gunner was not a privilege. It was, in the grim calculus of war, a curse. The MG42 was more than just a weapon. It was the cornerstone of German infantry doctrine. Unlike other armies that relied on the rifleman as the primary fighting element, the Wehrmacht centered its squads around the machine gun. The MG42 was the hammer, and the riflemen were its anvils, supporting the gunner, carrying his ammunition, and protecting his flanks. This philosophy demanded an almost supernatural level of suppression, forcing the enemy to keep their heads down while German infantry maneuvered. The weapon's incredibly high rate of fire wasn't just for effect. It was designed to create a literal wall of lead, ensuring that any enemy movement would be met with overwhelming, indiscriminate firepower. The gunner and his assistant, the Ladeschütze, loader ammunition carrier, were the heart of this system, trained to move rapidly, set up the gun, and lay down fire with ruthless efficiency. Their role was critical, their training intense, and their contribution to the squad's survival immense. But this very centrality, this indispensable power, would draw a fatal spotlight. For a newly assigned MG42 gunner, the first engagement was a brutal awakening. The sheer noise and recoil were overwhelming. The barrel, glowing cherry red after mere seconds of sustained fire, had to be swapped out quickly by the Ladeschütze, a critical skill practiced under terrifying pressure. "The first time I fired it in combat," recalled one veteran, "I thought my ears would bleed. The ground vibrated. It was like holding a wild animal. But then you saw the enemy falter, their charge break, and you felt an immense, terrifying power. This power, however, came at a staggering physical cost. The gun itself, weighing over 11.5 kg, 25 LEBs without its bipod, was heavy. Add to that the ammunition, often hundreds, even thousands of rounds in belts, carried by the gunner and his assistant, and the burden became immense, especially during forced marches or rapid deployments. The gunner was constantly exposed, his body contorted over the bipod, his position betraying him with every burst of fire. As the war progressed, the Allies adapted. They quickly learned that neutralizing the MG42 was paramount to any successful advance. Commanders issued explicit orders: identify the MG42 position, suppress it, and eliminate the gunner. The very sound that terrified them also served as a beacon, guiding their mortars, artillery, and snipers. The high rate of fire, once the MG42's greatest asset, became its most fatal flaw. It consumed ammunition at an alarming rate, requiring frequent exposed reloads. More importantly, it created a highly visible muzzle flash and a distinct, unmistakable auditory signature. "You could hear that buzzsaw from a mile away," one American GI famously stated, "and once you heard it, you knew exactly what your first target was." The turning point arrived when Allied forces began systematically targeting MG42 positions with concentrated firepower, making the gunner not just a priority, but often the first priority. Life for an MG42 gunner entered a phase of relentless peak intensity. Every position became a temporary grave. Digging in was an endless task, trying to create enough cover against the inevitable deluge of return fire. Snipers, specialized assault teams, and concentrated artillery barrages were continuously directed. At the sound of the MG42, the gunner became a magnet for destruction. He was constantly exposed, unable to easily take cover while operating his weapon. And his critical role meant he would fight to the last, even when outflanked or overwhelmed. The psychological toll was immense. Every time he opened fire, he knew he was inviting a storm of lead and steel upon himself and his small team. The relentless stress, the constant vigilance for incoming fire, the sight of his comrades falling around him, often including his Ladeschütze, chipped away at his sanity and his will to survive. He was a man with a target painted on his back, often outnumbered and outgunned, yet still expected to deliver overwhelming fire. The consequences of being an MG42 gunner were stark and immediate. A dramatically shortened life expectancy. If a German unit was wiped out or forced to retreat, the machine gun team was invariably among the first casualties. When a position was overrun, the gunner, often defiant to the last, was rarely taken prisoner easily. His very weapon had inflicted so much damage and terror that he was often treated with extreme prejudice by the advancing enemy. Replacing a lost MG42 gunner was a constant logistical and training challenge for the Wehrmacht. It wasn't just finding a new man. It was finding someone capable of operating such a demanding weapon under fire. Someone who understood the intricate dance between gunner and loader. The loss of an MG42 team meant a significant reduction in the squad's combat power, often forcing them to withdraw or making them highly vulnerable to counterattacks. The empty space left by a fallen gunner served as a chilling reminder to the remaining squad members of the deadly nature of their specialized role. Despite the horrific human cost, the MG42 profoundly influenced modern infantry tactics and weapon design. Its high rate of fire, easy barrel change system, and reliability in harsh conditions made it a benchmark for future general-purpose machine guns. The concept of the squad automatic weapon, a highly mobile, crew-served weapon providing suppressive fire, became a cornerstone of post-war infantry doctrine across many armies, including the United States, which developed its own high rate of fire machine guns partially inspired by the MG42. The curse of the gunner transformed into a cautionary tale. Immense power comes with immense vulnerability. Future weapon systems and tactical training would incorporate lessons learned from the MG42's operational reality, emphasizing better crew protection, quicker relocation, and more integrated fire support to compensate for the inherent danger of wielding such a potent yet exposed weapon. The story of the MG42 gunner is a poignant paradox. He was given a weapon of unparalleled battlefield dominance, a tool that could shape the immediate outcome of a firefight, save lives, and break enemy assaults. Yet, this very power came with a terrible, unavoidable cost. He was indispensable, feared, and simultaneously, the most targeted man on the battlefield. The curse was the direct consequence of his effectiveness. To be so deadly meant to invite death directly upon oneself. The high mortality rates among MG42 gunners serve as a stark reminder of the brutal realities of infantry combat in World War II. It was a role that demanded extraordinary bravery, resilience, and skill, but ultimately offered little chance of survival. Their legacy, alongside the weapon they wielded, stands as a testament to the individual human sacrifice demanded by the machinery of war, a sacrifice often paid in the most horrifying and lonely way imaginable.